Imagine a place that tells a story spanning centuries, where culture and nature intertwine to create something truly extraordinary. That's the beauty of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. I'm Abigail, and this is Global Treasures, the podcast that covers the history, travel tips, and legends surrounding one of the 1,248 World Heritage Sites each episode. These places have been identified as having universal cultural or natural significance that is so exceptional that it transcends national boundaries and is of importance to present and future generations. Welcome to Season 3, where we'll explore the 27 sites that UNESCO added in 1980 together. Thank you for listening to the Global Treasures podcast. I appreciate all of your support, and you can continue to support the podcast by subscribing at your favorite platform, such as Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Podbean. You can also follow us on Facebook, and you can subscribe to my blog on globaltreasurestravel.com. Picture yourself driving along the rugged coastline of Northern California. The fog rolls in dramatically from the Pacific Ocean, wrapping around towering trees, so large it almost seems impossible. You step out of your vehicle, and around your feet are wildflowers in an array of purples, pinks, and oranges. The sunlight streams through branches, hundreds of feet above your head, and, for a moment, the world goes silent, except for crashing waves in the distance. Today, we're visiting Redwood National and State Parks, a UNESCO World Heritage Site located in the United States. We'll explore the history, ecology, and preservation of these incredible forests before diving into how you can experience them for yourself. The Redwood National and State Parks are located north of San Francisco, along a region of coastal mountains. California itself is one of the largest states within the U.S., but even among all of its famous landscapes, the redwoods stand as an enigma. Redwood National and State Parks is a feast for lovers of wildlife and geological treasures. This site is actually made up of 4 protected park units. The first is Redwood National Park. Then there's Del Norte Coast Redwood State Park. The third is Jedediah Smith Redwoods State Park. And last but not least, Prairie Creek Redwoods State Park. Together, these parks protect roughly 139,000 acres of land and coastline, including about 37 miles of Pacific shoreline. The landscape here is incredibly diverse. Beyond the infamous forests, the parks also contain rocky cliffs, sandy beaches, grassland prairies, and rivers, all ecosystems that support endangered species and indigenous plant life. But what makes these parks so significant are the trees themselves. The coastal redwoods found here are the tallest trees on Earth. Some rise over 350 feet. To help you create a picture or a scale in your mind for comparison, this makes them taller than the Statue of Liberty. But even when you're walking among them, it feels almost surreal because your brain kind of struggles to comprehend the scale. Craning your neck up towards the sky to get a full view, they truly feel larger than life. What makes this place even more extraordinary is how ancient these forests are. Redwoods as a species have existed on Earth for around 160 million years, meaning their predecessors once existed alongside dinosaurs. Today, the park protects a little over 63 square miles of old-growth forest. This represents around 45% of all remaining old-growth coast redwoods left globally. That statistic becomes even more significant when you learn this next fact. At one point, more than 2 million acres of old-growth redwood forest covered the California coast. So now you're probably wondering, what happened? The answer lies in the California gold rush and the rise of the timber industry. For thousands of years, before Europeans settled here, Native American communities lived throughout this region, particularly near Redwood Creek. Tribes include the Yurok, Tolowa, Karuk, and Wyandotte. They used the forests in a sustainable manner, building villages and canoes from the fallen redwood trees, while still maintaining a deep spiritual connection to the land. Then, we pivot to European exploration of California, which began in the 18th century. It's important to note that this includes Spanish expeditions in 1775. But everything changed in 1848 when gold was discovered along the Trinity River during what is now called the California Gold Rush. Hundreds of thousands of people flooded California seeking vast wealth. Of course, with this sudden and massive population growth came demand for lumber. Redwood trees happen to be incredibly valuable because they're resistant to rot and insects, making them ideal for construction of homes. Logging quickly became one of the region's most lucrative industries. Unfortunately, the consequences were devastating. Entire forests that had stood for thousands of years were cut down in decades. Indigenous communities were displaced from their ancestral lands, and vast stretches of ancient forest disappeared altogether. By the 20th century, conservationists realized that without some sort of intervention, the remaining redwoods could vanish entirely. This led to the establishment of Redwood National Park in 1968, followed by expanded protections and partnerships with California state parks. Areas of forest that had not yet been logged were given special protections to ensure they're preserved for future generations. Even today, portions of the park include previously logged land undergoing long-term restoration. But the forest itself is only part of the story. The coastline within the park system provides a critical habitat for a variety of marine mammals and seabirds. Wildlife you may see during a visit here include sea lions, bald eagles, which is also the national bird of the United States, and endangered brown pelicans. The forests also serve as a home to the threatened northern spotted owl, Roosevelt elk, which was named after Teddy Roosevelt, who famously expanded the national park system. Black bears and banana slugs that have become somewhat iconic symbols of the Pacific Northwest. This ecosystem is incredibly dynamic, but also unpredictable. The area is seismically active, meaning earthquakes are always a real possibility. Because the parks lie along the Pacific coast as well, this leaves them prone to tsunamis. Fog, storms, and changing climate conditions continue to shape the landscape every year. Yet, despite all of these challenges, the redwoods endure. Standing beneath them, it's hard not to feel humbled. These trees have survived so much, from natural disasters to centuries of human exploitation. They remind us how important preservation truly is, as well as how small we are in the grand scale of time and space. Now, let's talk about what it's actually like to visit. One positive is that admission to Redwood National and State Parks is completely free, which makes this one of the most accessible UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the United States, if you're on a budget. There are over 21,000 miles of trails within the national parks in the United States, and a sizable chunk can be found in Redwood. However, note that there are use fees for vehicle parking and the beaches, and in order to access certain areas, you may have to get an online permit, but many of those are free. If you're flying in from another state or country, you have the choice of using a few different airports, depending on how far you're willing to take a rideshare or taxi. You could also rent a car and drive, which honestly is your best bet. So, you could fly into Del Norte or California, Red Coast, Humboldt County airports, which are closest. But San Francisco International Airport is much bigger, and you'll have many more options in terms of affordable, shorter flights. However, it's over a 5-hour drive from the airport to the park. In terms of places to stay, you'll have plenty of bed and breakfast, motels, RV parks, lodges, and amazing homestays to choose from. Most people choose Crescent City or Klamath as their base. In terms of things to do within the park limits, you can hike through old-growth forests, camp beneath towering trees, bike through the scenic routes, go horseback riding, and explore the beaches and coastal overlooks. While you won't run out of things to do, I'd also advise building downtime into your itinerary. If you're like me and you like to stay busy and active, that's great, but it can be exhausting, especially since many of the paths that you might hike are not flat. Make sure you wear comfortable sneakers or hiking boots. One thing I can promise, you will take a ridiculous number of photos. No picture truly captures how enormous these trees are until you're standing next to them yourself. As I stated before, if you're planning your visit, driving is one of the best ways to experience the parks because many scenic roads wind directly through old-growth groves. The official park website updates road conditions and weather closures regularly, so it's worth checking the morning of your trip. One particularly interesting stop is the historic Prairie Creek Fish Hatchery. It's listed on the National Register of Historic Places and was one of the earliest hatcheries developed to improve commercial fishing. Only 3 hatcheries from that era, built between 1871 and the mid-1900s, still remain. For visitor resources, the Kekol Visitor Center is the largest of the 5 visitor centers. It features exhibits about the forests, local wildlife, and indigenous history, along with beach access nearby. Most of the visitor centers also provide restrooms, picnic tables, and water refill stations. One important thing travelers should know: while you can buy souvenirs inside the parks, there are no full grocery stores or restaurants within most park areas. Packing your own meals and snacks is definitely recommended, especially if you plan to spend a full day hiking or driving those scenic routes. Thankfully, the surrounding towns near the park offer plenty of food options. If you really want to lean into the local flavors of Northern California, try salmon jerky or stop at a local restaurant serving game burgers like elk. The food culture here is very connected to the outdoors and regional traditions. Speaking of which, I promised one listener I would in fact touch on urban legends for this site. There's one in particular that is kind of renowned and celebrated by local communities. Some of you may already know where I'm going with this. Bigfoot is believed to live in the Redwood forest, and the legend was really born in Northern California. For those who don't know, Bigfoot is allegedly a large, ape-like humanoid creature living in the Pacific Northwest. There's film footage many of us have seen that was supposedly shot in the 1960s, capturing Bigfoot on home video, and that was actually at a national forest, only about an hour away from Redwood. So if it's of interest, you may want to research Six River National Forest. Since this is such a remote area, I would guess that if this creature exists, this is probably the perfect home for them. Willow Creek, which is also about an hour away, actually has a Bigfoot parade where they have floats, a car show, live music, and food eating contests. So, if you're interested in cryptozoology, you may want to attend the festival. The best time to visit is generally late spring through early fall, when weather conditions are milder, though the parks are beautiful year-round. Summer often brings cooler temperatures than people expect because of the coastal fog, so wearing layers is essential. But that fog, it's part of the magic. It drifts silently through the forest, creating this dreamlike atmosphere that makes the redwoods feel almost mythical. Redwood National and State Parks are more than just forests. They're filled with trees that are remnants of a world that once stretched across millions of acres and now exists in fragments, being very carefully protected. This UNESCO site tells a story about resilience and the responsibility we have to protect what remains. Whether you come for the hiking, the wildlife, the history, or simply to stand beneath the tallest trees on Earth. The redwoods leave an impression that stays with you long after you leave. And maybe that's the real power of places like this. They remind us that some things in this world are worth slowing down for. Thank you for listening to another episode of the podcast. Join me next time, where I'll cover yet another site worth voyaging to. Until then, keep exploring, keep wondering, and keep treasuring the remarkable diversity of our world's heritage.